everyone, and welcome to Disc Squared. Hi everyone, welcome to Disc Squared with me, your host, Hannah Gutierrez. Now, some of you may be wondering, Disc Squared, what does that mean? What will this podcast be about? Which is a good question. Now, some of you may also be wondering, disc. Maybe it's related to music, which isn't a bad guess. However, you would be wrong. I'm sorry. Not really, though. You see, Disc Squared is a shortened version of my original title, which was Discourse Discussion. You take the first 4 letters of those words, and you get Disc Squared. So welcome. Glad you're here. Hope you enjoy the discussion. Today, I am with my friend Ivan. Ivan, care to introduce yourself?
Hey, my name is Ivan Garza. I'm a student here at the university at UTRGV. I study mass communications and broadcasting with a minor in graphic design. And I'm currently 20 years old. I recently turned 20 2 weeks ago on March 13th, so it was exciting.
All right, Ivan, thank you for for joining me. So you know, the basic discussion is going to be about my 3 sources from my research essay. The overall discussion of this podcast in general is just how academic discourse affects second language students. And then this episode specifically focusing on my 3 sources. 2 of the sources that I used actually gave examples of students in the academic setting. One, a native English speaker, the other are students with English as a non-native language. And I plan to compare and contrast our experiences with the sources. So my first source is a video. It's a TEDx video, of how this translator, he argues that the word you is often the hardest word to translate without knowing context of the situation. So in many languages, the pronoun you reflects differences between the speaker and the listener. So in English, we don't have that anymore. We used to, but we got rid of it. But in Spanish, you can make the difference between the speaker and the listener if you want to. And then I also use Korean, since I'm fairly familiar with that language, to compare against English, because in Korean, you have to distinguish between the listener and the speaker. It's part of the language. With these differences of expression, do you think that someone who doesn't speak English natively would hesitate before speaking or try to find equivalents that would make them it would sound wrong to native English speakers?
That's an interesting point. The household that I grew up in was Spanish, right? And it was just me and my dad who spoke English. When we try to, distinct, like you said, like the speaker and the listener, we didn't really have struggles. Or when I spoke to someone like, you who mainly speaks English, I don't think I really see a struggle in that. I lived in Mexico for like a good 5 years. I was there like taken as a kid, like as a baby. And then I would spend like most of the day with my grandparents and just speaking to them in Spanish till like kindergarten. But I would go to school here in the United States. It's just like, I don't think so. I would see an issue in that, or like how you would. Okay. Now I'm trying to see it. Okay, wait, what up? Whoa. Well, I actually try to. I never put much thought into it. Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Never mind, I do see a struggle. Whoa, I never thought about it. Dude.
Well, for you grew up learning English and Spanish at the same time.
Yeah.
So you had a fair amount of comfortableness with both languages.
Yeah.
So although it may not directly apply to you, I know I've met several other native Spanish speakers, and they say they were always scared. And they were also encouraged not to speak Spanish in the academic setting. I never experienced that.
Yeah. I mean, I never experienced that either, because like I was comfortable.
Right.
All the time.
Uh-huh.
And it was so easy to switch between English and Spanish.
Right.
And like, I guess I knew the appropriate setting when to speak Spanish and English. Like right now, si fuera estuve hablando en español con usted, no me fuera entendido nada de lo que he dicho a usted, ¿verdad? Porque no entiendes el español tanto, ¿verdad? What I just said is that if I spoke to you in Spanish, you wouldn't understand what I just said because, I'm speaking to you in Spanish, right? I guess it was easy for me to adapt in the situation that I was in and the environment that I was in. Because I did see it in other classmates of mine that only spoke Spanish and they were told, hey, it's English.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck?
I've heard similar stories.
Yeah, I would make friends with those classmates of mine to help them out. And I would make them feel comfortable by speaking to them in Spanish as well. So they could feel like they have a sense of home here. Because they're from Mexico.
So when you met those students, is that primary education or college level education, or both?
Primary.
Primary. Okay.
It was in elementary and in middle school. Throughout my education, I actually do see myself fairly recently. It was yesterday when I hear an accent in someone. I tend to ask them if they're from Mexico or other areas in the world. Spanish is spoken, or Español. So I asked them English or Spanish, and they say, "Oh, Spanish, please." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well." And then that's when I start having conversations with them in Spanish, and they just feel so much more relaxed and stuff.
So much more comfortable.
Yeah.
I'll just move on to my next source, which is a study done on a native English speaker kindergarten student. In this study, it was shown that this kindergarten student, who is a native English speaker, spoke more at home than at school, which makes sense because naturally you're going to be more comfortable in your own home. The quality wasn't as good as it was at school. So she would speak more at home, but the quality of her sentences was better at school, which I thought was interesting because personally, I hardly ever spoke at school. I only spoke up when I had to, and when I did, and then when I was required to speak up, people would say, "Oh, so you can speak," trying to be funny. And I never said anything back because I was always quiet, and I could never say anything to someone who said that. But it's just this feeling like, not like you're not normal, but you're not average, I guess. I don't know how to put it. But in this study, the kindergarten student, it was noted that she only used 1 or 2 words to express herself in the academic setting. So for you, did you talk a lot in school? Were you a talker?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like it fits your personality.
Yeah, just to go back, I would approach those students that came from Mexico, right, and they would study here. Almost kind of like me, right? Again, I had a dad who spoke English and very well, and Spanish too at the same time. So when I struggled in either two of them, I would ask like, okay, how does that translate in Spanish, or how does that translate in English? Because sometimes I would find myself mixing the both languages together. But in school, I was always social. I don't think I ever was quiet in either at my home or at school.
In either setting.
Yeah, in any of the settings, I was always talking, especially to my parents as well. Since I was like the only child at the house. I mean, because I have siblings too, right? But I was like the only kid in my home. The only friends I had at home were my parents. Just talking to them constantly, or just like just having a conversation with them always helped me out outside of school. But again, that's not always the case. Like you see here, like for you, like you said that you're more comfortable at home. Yeah. Right. And then at school, it's just this different thing.
It switches.
Yeah. And sometimes people tend to put almost like an identity in you. Like, is that how you are at home? It's like almost like, because some people use that like the way how you behave outside is the way how you behave.
It's how you always behave.
Yeah, but it's not always the case.
Right.
So
depends on comfort levels.
Yeah, depends the environment too.
I think another argument as to why some students are naturally quiet, other than personality, is that sometimes the home discourse, the home setting consists of dialects, and in academic settings, standard American English is always very pushed. It's because it's the standard. So typically, teachers, professors won't accept dialect standards. So even though I could say something that's correct according to those dialect standards, it's going to be counted as wrong in the academic setting because it's not standard American English. So if I were to speak up, which would already be out of my comfort zone, but you speak up in a dialect and then you're told it's wrong, when at home it's perfectly fine. So it's that another factor to consider when we think of it. It kind of shows that it doesn't only affect second language students, although they are the main focal point of my topic. But if it happens to native English speakers, then can you imagine how it is for second language students?
Yeah. No, and again, if anything, it's a higher level of struggle that they go through, because they, again, at home, it's something they're just more comfortable talking the way that they talk at home, and then for them to bring it here into the academic area, it's like, hey, no, that's wrong. It's like, but at home, it's okay. At the same time, they get discouraged as well, and at that point, I think it'll just lead to them just being quiet throughout their whole lives, because it happens at such a young age too, and it scars them, if anything, and it's hard for them to open up, let alone just say hi to someone.
I was actually kind of talking about this with my mom last night. We were talking about my first source, actually, about the concept of you and how we express it in different languages. So in English, I could go to a teacher and say, "Are you going to be in class today?" Whereas in Korean, an English equivalent to a Korean sentence would be, "Is my professor going?" And even though you're speaking to your professor, you have to say, "My professor" to them. You can't say "you." because it's disrespectful in that language. We were talking about it and we said people who have that in their language may look for it in English, and then when they try to show that respect that they have in their own language in English, they're gonna get weird looks because it's just not.
Yeah.
That's not how English works.
Yeah.
And even though they're trying to show that respect,
it won't have the same effect.
Exactly.
And it's just like this.
And it's just, why did you say it like that?
Yeah.
Type of thing.
When in reality, it's just all out of respect. 'Cause
Exactly.
that's how they were taught and how they were brought up. And that's how it is in other languages.
It's culture.
It's culture.
It's cultural.
Exactly. I didn't put much thought into it, but now I do, right?
Yeah.
An example would be like, I'm gonna use some slang. Oiga, profesor, vas a salir. And if I say that in English, like, hey, professor, are you gonna go out? Rather than saying, hey, are you gonna go out? It's just like, again, it's just this respect. Or like when you're talking to someone, like to your parents, like, oye, ma, vas a salir. Hey, mom, are you gonna go out? Like when you approach your mom, it's like, hey, are you gonna go out? You don't add that title of respect. Yeah, I didn't really put much thought into it.
Yeah.
Now I do.
So that actually ties into my last source pretty well. The author of this article claims that young children from minority cultures must learn academic or school discourse very early on in order to succeed. So once I reached high school, I actually felt this overemphasis on having correct grammar to the point where it seemed the content of my writing didn't matter if my grammar was poor. This article, it gave the example of these Japanese students in Canada and how they were positioned disadvantagedly by the instructor's comments as non-native speakers and writers, denying the students any sense of legitimacy in their courses just because English wasn't their first language.
Yeah.
So their writing isn't necessarily on par with native English speakers, which should not come as a surprise. These students were often disappointed, confused, or just not helped by comments on their assignments. These professors could be making comments on their grammar and how to fix it, but since they didn't grow up learning English, they don't know these grammar rules in the first place. And I don't think you can teach grammar rules just by making corrections on essays with a red pen.
Yeah.
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, no. It's very important to have that help, and those comments help out a lot. It's like, and explaining why, right? And then also following up with an example. Hey, this is how it should have been written. This is how it should have been said. Rather than just like, hey, that's wrong. Again, it's just completely wrong, and that's not the right way to teach someone. It's just discouraging. They get so confused, and they lose this, not excitement, but just this will of wanting to like what's the point of trying if I'm just gonna...
Especially if the content that they're trying to convey is good.
Yeah, exactly.
And they have a good topic, but you just unfortunately have poor grammar, and the whole paper will be dismissed. That's also hard when you understand what you're trying to say, but then other people don't understand. So you have to find a different way to say what you already understand, if that makes sense.
I feel like these languages tend to be like inside jokes, like only we understand, or like the person like native to like where they come from, it's like only they get it, right? And then we try to say the inside joke, and it's just not funny.
Right. Yeah. So we already touched on how I wanted to finish this, which is standard American English deems dialect discourse incorrect, which by dialect rules it would be correct, which creates this fear to speak up even more so when you're corrected, when you think you're right, and you are right, but just not by that academic discourse standards. And then we have the students who are discouraged in speaking their native language at all. So we both seen that when Spanish speakers are told, we speak English here. And I know my mom had that too. She was put in kindergarten. She was native Spanish speaker. She was put in kindergarten, and then all of a sudden it was just English. It's just English all the time. Is that immersion necessary to learn English fastest, or is it just gonna help the students fall behind faster because they don't understand and they haven't been properly taught?
I think, again, especially at such a young age, and they're kids, and of course they don't have that same speed to keep up, and of course everyone's different as well. Some might need more attention than others to help out when speaking, and it's like that with any other language, right? Like me, right now I'm learning how to study Japanese. Right now I'm not focusing on the grammar, rather I'm just trying to learn how to speak. But there's no rush into it. Having that rush definitely diminish the way how you want to learn. And then it's like, wait, hold up, wait. I didn't get this. And it's like, well, too bad.
Yeah.
Move on.
We're moving on.
Yeah, I don't think that having that, like, just being thrown in there doesn't.
Exactly. It's not fair.
It's not fair. It doesn't help out at all. It's like being stranded in an island.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I do? And everything's just so confusing, and then you just start to get stressed, and
everything goes downhill.
It starts becoming this whole psychological thing. And at that point, you just don't want to work anymore.
You just want to give up. It's easier.
Yeah.
So personally, I think educators should be more aware of these students and their language background, and should be more aware of how they're grading them. And I understand if we want to get grammar specific with the native English students, fine. First language, okay. But for these non-native English speakers, we should be focusing more on learning the language in general, honestly. But then do you do that by teaching grammar?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Again, for me, this is why I'm starting to learn how to speak Japanese first rather than the language. I doubt the way I'm going to communicate with someone in Japan is like writing a paper to them and then just handing it to them right in front of them.
Read this.
Yeah, read this. Rather than, like, I just want to have that communication through them verbally. And then also, like, it helps out understanding their facial expressions and, like, their tone of voice.
You know, but then you also have the argument, is this the educator's job
to
teach English? You think so?
Oh, no, like, I'm agreeing to.
Okay, I was like, sorry. Okay.
No.
Is it? No, okay.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's definitely not.
That's interesting, because I'm thinking, is it the educator's job or is it the parent's job? Which is where we'll pick up next episode.
Oh,
Thank you guys. Next episode, where I discuss the missing perspective, which I have as parents. And I will be discussing that with my mom. Thank you for listening, everyone. Ivan, say bye.
Adios.
Adios. Bye.